Hi guys, what's going on? Story time. Well, I was thinking about to tell a story about the fly fishing I mostly do in the Netherlands and sometimes out the Netherlands. But this story is about fly fishing in the Netherlands. I am fishing now with the fly rod for approximately 38 years, and this story was about 21 years ago. In the Netherlands, where I live in Zeeland, is a very large lake. It's called the Veerse meer, Veerse Lake, and um, it's salt water. It's close by a dam, so in the earlier years, in the 60s and the 70s, it was an open sea arm, but now it's closed by a dam. um, After the water floodings of 1953. There was a delta plan in the Netherlands and they closed a lot of waters. But to come back to the fly fishing, it's a very big lake, very large. It's approximately 25 kilometers long and on the widest point, let's say one kilometer. So it's really serious water. They used to stock this lake with trout, lots of trout, with brown trout, rainbow trout. So it was a paradise for fly fishing, for spin fishers, and even bait fishers caught a lot of trout over there. But for fly fishing, it was a real paradise. Um, this story takes place 20 years ago, and I remembered it was a very foggy day. So I loaded all my kit into the car and took a drive from about 1 hour to this lake. And mostly of this fishing is done with reservoir tackle, 6, 7, or 8 weight rod, um, with saltwater fly reel, which can take the beating of saltwater fishing, with slow sinking and sinking lines, with small streamers and that kind of stuff. Well, I will tell you, the water was very crystal clear. There was almost no wind. It was foggy, and um, in this water, mostly we used to fish with waders on. So I put on my neoprene waders and a very thick uh, sweater over it with my wading jacket and all my gear, of course a landing net, and I walked to the water. And it's always very important, of course, to wade very slowly into the water, very slowly and very quiet. And especially with this weather, um, you make a lot of disturbance if you don't do that. So I walked into the water, and all I could hear were almost thousands and thousands of geese flying over, and it's an amazing sight. It's even through the mist, I could see them. They were flying very low, and the stupid thing was, the only thing they they do is they drop the droppings into the water. So I put on my hood of my wading jacket, but luckily I was not hit. But I started fishing and made a couple of casts with my fly rod. I started casting, retrieving the line back very easy. Um, it was very cold. Maybe 2 degrees below zero. So yeah, that's for me that's quite cold fishing. Maybe if you come from Scandinavia or the USA, you laugh about that, but for the Netherlands, it's really serious. So I started fishing and made a couple of fly casts, and I saw nothing. But after a minute or 10, a, a little flock of geese was flying over me, and one small feather of these geese was falling very slowly on the water. Let's say 15-20 meters from me, and I was fishing. I made a couple of casts, walked a few steps, and at the moment I saw a very large flash of silver in the water, and bang! It hit it on uh, the feather which was floating on the water. Wow! I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a very big trout. I think it was a trout about 75, 80 centimeters. The first thing I tried to do was made a couple of casts, a very fast cast into the direction of the fish. Nothing happened. Second time a cast, and then bang! I was hooked. I was in. The rod gave an enormous bending, and I was at the time I was fishing with a 6 weight sage fly rod, an RPL Plus, 9 feet 6 for a 6 weight. Fantastic rods. These were absolutely stunning rods. I was so stupid to sell it 15 years ago. I should never done that. But the rod was bending, and the reel I was using was a loop drive fly. So it's a really very fast a very fast retrieving reel with a hyper large arbor. So I made contact with the fish, and the rod was in an instant bend. Well, this was really serious. I was in a state of I'm in another world now. The fish was taking a small run from 5-6 meters, and I did uh, immediately recognize this is a brown trout. I hooked. These brown trout transform in a kind of sea trout in this lake. They become very silvery, like a bar of silver, and but they behave really in fighting matters as a brown trout. So it's very slow and very heavy. Boom, kaboom, kaboom on the rod. So the rod was bending in a curve of 90 degrees. Very. I was very carefully playing the fish, not too carefully, but I was walking a little bit back to the shore and tried to play it out. And then at the moment the fish took a run of about 12-15 meters, and I rinsed the reel with my hand, because there's no drag on those loop fly reels. Nowadays they are called the Danielson dry fly. Excellent reels, superb quality, and it's a real adventure to play a fish on it. But the fish took off, and suddenly it made an enormous jump out of the water. I think it came 1 meter 20, 1 meter 30 out of the water, and I saw the fish. Wow! I thought it was a fish of 12, 13, 14 pounds. Extremely big. And at that moment, the fly came loose. The rod jumped back into from a curve into the straight position, and I was gutted. There was only a large dimple in the water, and it was so quiet that the only thing I heard was the soft quacking of the geese and a curlew, which made the sound like. Then I at that moment I had fished for 20 minutes, maybe. I was gutted. I walked back to the shore and laid my rod on the grass, and I've sat there for 1 hour only watching to the water. I was gutted. I lost maybe the biggest trout I ever hooked in my life. But after that, I walked back to the car and loaded my rod into the car, made it ready, and I drove home. I was heartbroken that day. Why? Because after that, years and years later, it's such a great story to tell. The nice thing about fish that you, of course, lose or while fighting, they become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But I was totally sure I've seen what it was, and it was absolutely a fish of a lifetime. But now I have a tale to tell, because it's a kind of mythical fish for me. So if I remember that fish, I'm always thinking back of it, and yeah. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'm going to walk the dog, and see ya.